Hello, my name is Whitney Russell, and this is TE 790 Work-Based Learning, and I'm here to give a reflection on the book that we were asked to read this semester called Leaving to Learn. So before I jump into that, though, I just want to spend a minute talking about what to expect in this screencast. First, I'm going to have an overview of the text itself, kind of going chapter by chapter, breaking down just the major themes throughout the book, and then the relationship that this book, Leaving to Learn, has with work-based learning as a whole. Then I'm going to go into what the strengths and limitations of the text are, whether or not I recommend it, and then I will wrap things up. So chapter 1 starts with an overview of why students disengage from school. They identify four major reasons that they call the big four why students disengage. These are academic failure, behavior, life events, and disinterest. But rather than just leaving it at those surface issues, they talk about what they identify as the deeper four, the bigger reasons, the deeper reasons that students are leaving school. Those are that students feel like they don't matter, that they don't fit in, they feel like their talents and interests are unrecognized, and then they feel like there are unrealistic expectations that are placed on them. Chapter 2 then jumps into, so if students are disengaging from school, then what do they need in order to stay, invested. And so they outline these student expectations. The first one is relationships. Do their teachers and others who might serve as their teachers know about them and their interests? Relevance. Do they find what they're learning relevant to their interests? Authenticity. Is what they're learning and the work that they do regarded as significant outside of school? Application. Are there real world applications for what they're learning? Do they have choice in what they're learning? Are they feeling appropriately challenged? Do they have opportunities to play? We too often take this opportunity to play at school. We see that in the early years, but then by second, third grade, play is gone. And so students expect still to have that opportunity to play. Do they have an opportunity to practice and engage in the skills that they're learning? Do they have sufficient time to learn at their own pace? And then lastly, can they pursue their learning out of the standard sequence? Chapter 3 then jumps into what are the three stages that students go through as they start to lean toward leaving. Stage number 1 is the first stage of separation. This usually starts in that second or third grade years when the fun is taken out of school. And it's what the authors describe as a passive disengagement. Then stage 2 is when students start to look outside of school for fulfillment. This is when they start thinking about leaving, and it typically starts in the middle grades. And then stage 3 is when school becomes intolerable. Students start to display behavioral issues, and then the last phase of this stage 3 is that they drop out, they leave school. Before I jump into chapter 4 and 5 and what that's about, I love that these chapters start with this quote: "To be what we are and to become what we are capable of becoming is the only end in life." And I really think that sets the stage for the rest of the book. What are students capable of becoming if we let them? So chapters 4 and 5 talk about success, and kind of a big, eye-opening moment is that grades are not the only measure of success. And in fact, broadening the definition of success and how students can achieve it is the key requirement for creating more successful schools. Not all of your students are going to fall into that mold of, the straight A student. And yet that's our only measure of success in school. So we need to broaden that definition. Then jumping into chapter 6, how can students help students learn more productively? They give 4 ideas for that. First is projects in real world contexts and settings, the opportunity for students to work with expert practitioners, authentic applications of technological tools, and then assessment through performances that demonstrate their skill and understanding. A child educated only at school is an uneducated child. And this kind of sets the stage for the next phase of the book, which is leaving to learn. How can students leave to learn? And they give so many different examples of how students can pursue these leaving to learn opportunities. I'm just going to quickly go through each of them. The first is experts in residence, that students work with community experts to achieve their learning. Second, road trips, really self-explanatory. It's for a way for students to explore the community around them. After school programs, these can be clubs, projects, competitions. Community service is another great way for students to get out into the community. Next is internships and apprenticeships. That's kind of the more beefy way of leaving to learn. Taking college courses outside of their regular high school courses. Actually working, getting jobs outside of school is another great way to leave to learn. And independent study. Some students, the traditional high school setting's not for them, and so they have independent study courses. Travel, seeing the world. A gap year. This is more common in countries outside of the United States, but taking time off to pursue alternative learning. Entrepreneurial ventures. This can be both paid and unpaid, but really it's a way for students to start pursuing different career paths that they're interested in. Online learning. Again, not all students do well in the traditional setting, so maybe they would do better from learning from afar. And then comeback programs are programs that would be offered to students who have dropped out, but they want to return. Chapter 8 then goes into how do we as educators and as schools support this Leaving to Learn initiative. First is that we develop comprehensive student learning plans that are very specific to each individual student. Another is school-wide and student-specific rules of the road. So there would still need to be, this isn't just a free-for-all. There still would be rules and expectations that surround any specific Leaving to Learn program for these individual students. Number 3, experts from whom students can learn, not just from their teachers, but as we saw in previous slides, actually learning from experts in their community. And then specific context in which out-of-school learning will take place. And then lastly, portfolios for presenting and displaying student work. Chapters 9 and 10 are really just summing it up, hitting the nail on the head, getting to that final point. And I think a great summary of that are those student expectations that we started with, restated as imperatives, like the necessities that schools need to have. Just a couple of them, I won't read through all of them, but ones that really stood out to me are: we will know our students' interests, talents, and aspirations. We will engage students in meaningful and valuable learning and work in and out of school. We will provide customized learning schedules. So these are all really necessary in order to have a successful Leaving to Learn program. So what does that have to do with work-based learning? Well, the great thing is that work-based learning is a very natural way to implement Leaving to Learn in schools. Work-based learning is an educational approach that combines classroom instruction with technical experiences. It uses workplace standards and experience to connect high school students with their communities and potential future employers. And it allows students to be exposed to a multitude of pathways so that they are able to explore future college and career opportunities. Just by reading those kind of basic definitions of work-based learning, it is really obvious that work-based learning is an answer to Leaving to Learn. Students are working with experts. They are working outside of the schools. They are actually working in careers that they may want to pursue in the future. It's individualized. It is just really a great application of a Leaving to Learn program. There are 4 aspects of the work-based learning continuum. It starts with career awareness. An example of that may be a guest speaker, so students become aware of what careers are out there. Then it would progress up to mentoring. That's the career exploration side. Then the career preparation would be the internship. And then lastly, actual career training would be something like an apprenticeship. Some of the benefits of work-based learning: a multitude of learning styles are addressed, disadvantaged students are more successful, as well as minority students, they're more likely to enter college, and then work-based learning equips students with a whole host of 21st century skills. So jumping into the next part, what were some of the strengths and limitations of the text? Well, for me, one of the strengths was that the authors really shine a light on issues with traditional education, saying hey, things aren't working, we need to change it. I think that that's really imperative in this current educational climate. And it's also refreshing to see other educators challenging the status quo of education by proposing this whole revolutionary way of addressing education. A limitation of the text for me was while these ideas were fantastic, I felt like a lot of the text was pretty repetitive. And then my biggest issue with it is that a lot of the evidence, quote unquote, that was used throughout the book was really just kind of a series of anecdotal stories. I would have loved to see more hard data supporting the benefits of a Leaving to Learn program. But would I recommend the book? The answer is absolutely, because I think it is always important to look at alternative forms of education. And I really do think that it was eye-opening and makes, readers think like, that's true. Traditional schooling is not for all students. And then lastly, I really do think that Leaving to Learn is a great alternative to education today. I do think that it needs to be fleshed out more. I do think there needs to be more research. I do think there needs to be a more robust plan in place in order for it to happen. But I do think that this book is a really great start. And then these are the resources that I used, that I found around the web and on some of our readings from the classes to kind of talk a little bit about work-based learning and what it looks like in the Leaving to Learn program. So that's it. This is Whitney signing off. Talk to you later.